Meeting of the Somerville City Council to order in accordance with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2023. This meeting of the City Council may be conducted via remote participation, and please note that video and audio of this meeting is being recorded and may be shown live on local access government channels and on the City of Somerville website and will be available for future review. Will the clerk please call the roll?
This is roll call. Councillor McLaughlin.
Here.
Councillor Davis.
Here.
Councillor Wilson.
Present.
Councillor Said.
Here.
Councillor Scott.
Present.
Councillor Mba.
Present.
Councillor Burnley.
Present.
Councillor Burnley.
Present.
Councillor Klingon.
Present.
Councillor Strezzo.
Present.
Councillor Pineda-Neufeld.
Present.
Councillor Ewan-Campen.
Here.
With 11 councillors present, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Clerk Wells. Pursuant to our Rule 32, let it be known that this City Council salutes the flag of the United States of America, and let us recall our oath to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the Commonwealth to the best of our abilities and understanding. We begin our meetings with a moment of silence. Are there councillors wishing to remember community members today? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to remember Marie Howe. Ms. Howe was a neighbor of mine down the street, who I first met a day or so after a snowstorm when she was diligently trying to clear the snowplow piles from the sidewalks on the corner of West and Highland, and I jumped in to help a bit where I could. Didn't know at the time that it was a former state representative, served 23 years in the House, a list of accomplishments that folks can look up. Of course, Ms. Howe's family also serves the city in a number of ways, and she passed away I guess about a week and a half ago, early December, at the age of 85, and I ask that she be remembered.
Thank you, Councillor. Everyone who is able, if you would please rise. Oh, excuse me, Councillor Pineda-Neufeld, please.
Thank you. I'd like to remember Virginia Ginny Smithers Sanders, apologies, who passed away on November 23rd. You may recognize this name as the person by whom our pool, the Kennedy School, is named after. She leaves her husband of 33 years behind, her 4 sons, Kyle, Dale, Braun, and Tarn, and her 7 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. She was born in Boston but grew up in Somerville in Ward 7, and in her youth she won multiple national championships as a long-distance swimmer. The Ginny Smithers Pool at the JFK School was named in her honor, and the plaque at the pool declares Ginny Somerville's gift to the aquatic world. Her professional career at Northeastern and as a psychotherapist was impressive, but her true accomplishment in life was not a resume bullet point. Hugely charismatic, her superpower was creating life and community wherever she went. In later life, Ginny became an inspiration and beacon of hope to those battling cancer. At the end of her obituary, it states, "Ginny lived life to the very last drop. In lieu of flowers, get up, get out, and live," which I think is a good motto for all of us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone in the chamber who's able, if you will please rise for a moment of silence for these individuals. Thank you. Please be seated. Colleagues, it is our last regular meeting of the year, which means we have a very packed agenda. We have a bunch of items that we have staff here or members of the public here, so we're going to take them up at the beginning. We always start with our citations, and then we have public hearings for grants of locations. Apologies to everyone who has to sit through these boring utility public hearings at the beginning. Then we are going to take up a number of police promotions. We have a lot of proud families here. Thank you for being here. After that, we're going to take up item 10.2. That is related to wage theft, and there's a member of the public here to speak. After that, we have to go into executive session on item 7.1, and we have outside counsel and a great deal of city staff here, so that's time sensitive that we get to that early in the night, unfortunately. There are then I've been guaranteed a very brief presentation from the director of OSPCD, the Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development. That's 8.3 on the agenda. After that, we have 3 time-sensitive finance requests, 7.12, 7.9, and 7.5, and staff is here to answer questions on those. And then we're going to take up the land use report, which has some ordinances that will be before the council for approval, and I want to take those up while we still have some gas in the tank. With that.
The next item is item 1.3, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 14th, 2024.
Seeing no discussion, those are approved.
On the table for approval.
Laid on the table for
2.1 is a citation by Councilor Pineda-Newfeld commending Councilor Ben Ewan-Campen for his distinguished service as president of this council in 2024.
Thank you all, thank you all. Councilor Vice Pineda-Newfeld.
Mr. President, may I share what's on it?
Please.
Okay. Citation, be it hereby known to all that the Somerville City Council offers its sincere commendations to Ben Ewan-Campen, President, in recognition of his meritorious service to the City Council and his tireless efforts for the betterment of the entire city. All the councilors extend their gratitude and express the hope for ongoing success in all endeavors.
Colleagues, genuinely, thank you all. It's been really great to serve in this role. And a special thank you to our clerk and the clerk's team, who I've worked really, really closely with and are just totally exemplary public servants, and the Intergovernmental Affairs team. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 2.2 is a citation by Councilor Ewan-Campen commending Councilor Judy Pineda-Newfeld for her distinguished service as vice president of this council in 2024.
This is why we get the crowds here, so that we can all celebrate ourselves. I'm going to read this. Congratulations, Vice President Pineda-Newfeld. In recognition of the distinguished manner in which she presided at the council's meetings and her dedicated service to the entire city, all of the councilors extend their gratitude and express the hope for ongoing success in all endeavors. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 2.3 is a citation by Councilor Wilson commending the engineering department for their outstanding achievements in the 2024 construction season.
Councilor Wilson.
Mr. President, I believe we can always do a better job as a city of telling good stories when we have a good story to tell. And I think our engineering division has a really good story coming out of the 2024 construction season. This was a banner year for the folks in engineering. Construction liaison and compliance manager Jesse Moose, project managers Scott Barr, Gina Cortez, and Carla Quaresma, senior project managers Dan Amelin and Rebecca Wright, Deputy Director Kevin Roche, Deputy Director of Engineering Projects Jonathan Smith, Engineering Director Brian Postlewaite, Infrastructure and Asset Management Director Rich Raish, and last but not least, Construction Public Information Officer Nick Alekel in comms. These folks absolutely knocked it out of the park on everything on their 2024 construction list, including but not limited to the Poplar Street Pump Station. If you haven't toured that or seen the photos, it's wild. The Western Washington redesign project, the Powder House Alewife Brook Parkway, FAB as it's known, the Central Broadway water main work, and then smaller projects like lead service replacement, which is also amazing, as we've heard in updates we've gotten here, and then the water and sewer CCTV investigations as well. They were not only able to finish everything on this year's list, they were able to get a jump on next year's list by starting sidewalk work on Lower Summer Street that had been scheduled for early 2025. So cheers to our engineering division on a really standout year. Thanks.
Hear, hear.
Item 5.1 is a citation by Councilor Mba and Councilor Ewan-Campen commending Reby Garofalo on the auspicious occasion of his 80th birthday.
Councilor Mba.
Thank you, Madam President. Reby is someone that I've had the pleasure to know and to call him a friend. You know, it's just been an honor for me to present this citation to you with my colleague, Councilor Ewan-Campen. I want to say that you are a myth, and you're an educator, you're a legend. You know, Reby is the father of Honk. If you know about Honk Festival, you know, he's the Renaissance man. Somebody who has dedicated his entire life to building community and promoting social justice. It's such an honor to have you before the City Council and to honor you in this community. Thank you, Reby.
Thank you, Madam President. Lots of people in Somerville know Reby, but for those people who don't know him, I would argue that there's a better than likely chance you actually do know him, even if you don't think you do. If you have ever heard one of the honk bands, the Good Trouble Brass Band, chances are that you have seen Reby playing drums. You are an absolute treasure to Somerville. And I got to hear you give a little autobiographical speech at your 80th birthday party. And Reby talked about how a lot of your community activism traces back to Freedom Summer and the Civil Rights Movement. And in particular, what struck you, you said, was the way that music was so integral to that movement, and that you have carried throughout your life. That you've continued to use music not just as joy, something to do, festivals, but really as a tool to build community and political change, both locally here in Somerville and internationally. So thank you for everything you do, and happy birthday.
We're not done yet. We're not done yet, Reby. So here's the citation. Be it hereby known to all that the Somerville City Council and the Mayor offer their sincerest commendation to Reby Garofalo. On this auspicious occasion of his 80th birthday, Reby has dedicated his life to fostering cultural understanding, community building, and the promotion of social justice through his work as an educator, author, and an advocate. The City Council honors Reby's extraordinary life of service, his enduring contributions to the arts and education, and his unwavering commitment to justice and community, and extend his heartfelt gratitude and warmest wishes for health, happiness, and continued success in the years to come. Congratulations, Jason.
I'm not sure which way I'm supposed to face, but I guess here's the mic. So, there's something about this award that feels special to me. A little weird, but special. And as I thought about that, it occurs to me that there's something that feels special about being recognized by the people who know you best, about being recognized by the people that you live with and that you work with every day and that you get involved with on a very deep level. That kind of recognition seems rare to me, and it's most appreciated. I am humbled. But I would also add that if I have any claim on doing good works in Somerville, it is precisely because of the caliber of the people that I get to work with. Many of those creative people are in this room, and I thank all of you. And I particularly want to thank Will and Ben for proposing me for this honor. And I trust that you and your families will enjoy the trip to the Bahamas that I've arranged for you. But seriously, I really am humbled, and thank you very much for this. I appreciate it more than you know.
Do a roll call and see if this passes? No, just kidding. That is laid on the table for approval. Happy birthday.
The next item then will be item 3.1, a grant of location from Eversource, applying to install approximately 251 feet of conduit in Prospect Street from utility pole 291/14 to a point of pickup at 118 Prospect Street.
I declare this public hearing open. Is there anyone here to speak on the item?
I have Jackie Duffy.
Jackie Duffy.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Great, how are you?
Good, thank you. We'd like to install 251 feet of conduit in Prospect Street to provide electric service to 118 Prospect Street, which will be a multi-unit residential building.
Is there anyone else here to speak on the item? The public hearing is closed. Councilors? Councilor Scott.
Mr. President, thank you. This is in Ward 2, and as much as you said these grant of location hearings are very boring, I think this one is somewhat momentous. Many regular viewers will know that for several months now, I've been referring all of these grants of location from Eversource to committee. Eversource representative and a Comcast representative did come to our license and permits meeting just last night, at which time we received the most comprehensive update and action plan on how to remove double poles in our city. And we have a commitment from them to return to that committee repeatedly every 2 weeks to monitor the progress on that. And so it is my hope that very soon, with the scourge of all these undocumented and unmaintained double poles in the city will soon be resolved, which is something that I know many of us here have been looking forward to for 7 years. So with that, I am happy to recommend this grant of location for approval, sir.
Wow. That item is laid on the table for approval.
The next item is item 3.2, a grant of location from Eversource to install approximately 25 feet of conduit and a new manhole in Auburn Avenue from utility pole 17/2 to a point of pickup at 11 Auburn Avenue.
The public hearing is open. Is there someone here to speak?
Jackie Duffy, Eversource. We'd like to install 25 feet of conduit and one new manhole to provide electric service to 1113 Auburn Avenue, which will be a 6-unit building.
Is there anyone else to speak on the item? The public hearing is closed. Councilors, laid on the table for approval.
Item 3.3 is a grant of location from Eversource to install approximately 28 feet of conduit in Windsor Place from existing manhole 26724 to a point of pickup at 600 Windsor Place.
This public hearing is open. Jackie Duffy.
Jackie Duffy, Eversource. Would like to install 28 feet of conduit, Windsor Place, to provide electric service to 600 Windsor Place.
Is there anyone else to speak on this? Public hearing is closed. Questions, comments, laid on the table for approval.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Grant of location from Cambridge Network Solutions to install approximately 114 feet of conduit in Linwood Street and Fitchburg Street from existing manhole 22014 to a proposed handhole and continuing to a point of pickup at 1 Fitchburg Street.
This public hearing is open. Welcome.
Hi, Herb Bertoni from Cambridge Network Solutions. We are applying for a grant of location to install approximately 114 feet of conduit in Linwood Street and Fitchburg Street from an existing Eversource manhole 22014, Linwood Street to a handhole and continuing to a point of pickup at 1 Fitchburg Street for a new service lateral.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak on the item? Please, sir.
Hi, Rob Castle from 1 Fitchburg Street. Wanted to ask that any approval be conditioned on restoration of any stone pavers that might be disturbed by the proposed work. We've put a lot of effort into trying to preserve the stone pavers on a historic street at that location. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. This is Ward 2, is that correct? Would you like to condition this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Also, I'd like to note that there was a communication, item number 241711, that was related to this grant of location. Yes, this is right in front of Brick Bottom Artist Loft, and while the permit is already conditioned about bricks and concrete sidewalks, this is a historic cobblestone road right there in front. So I would like to further condition it, put an approval condition on requiring that any cobblestones displaced will be stored and replaced in an orderly manner. And then further, I'd like to place an additional condition saying that Cambridge Network Solutions should be required to provide 1 Fitchburg Street residents with a parking alternative if any parking is going to be blocked during that construction period.
Does the clerk have those? Excellent. We'll roll call this in a moment. I think I forgot to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. All right, on the amended grant of location.
On the 2 conditions, that any cobblestone displaced is restored and replaced in an orderly manner, and that 1 Fitchburg Street residents are provided with an alternative parking. Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Councilor Said.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Burnley.
Aye.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Pineda-Neufeld.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
With all councilors in favor, those conditions are approved.
as amended, laid on the table for approval. Thank you for being here. Councilor Scott.
President, just as a note, I would appreciate it if the representative would be in touch with any construction documents that are going to show how that replacement process is going to be made, especially with consideration for subsidence, right? So with the cobblestone sinking after the fill's been put in.
Right, yeah.
So I'd appreciate you being in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, here we go.
And the next item that will be taken out of order is item 6A, a report of the Committee on Confirmation of Appointments and Personnel Matters, meeting on December 2nd, 2024.
Councilor Pineda-Newfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our committee met on December 2nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. For an hour and 7 minutes. We had 4 members present. Our member who was absent was chairing another meeting at the same time. We took up we approved the meeting minutes of our last meeting. We then took up the confirmation of the appointment of our new Director of Racial and Social Justice, Amanda Najim Williams. Director Gill was there to introduce the candidate. Amanda has been with the department since 2022, was recently promoted, and so the committee members asked some really good questions about her past experience that prepared her for this leadership role. She shared her extensive experience supervising a variety of teams, including task forces, and implemented a lot of important measures during her time before she was director. She was also asked about how her experience in the legal field would help her in the director role, as well as some of her previous DEIJ work. Additionally, we talked extensively with the new director about her experience building community and what she's looking forward to and what challenges might be inherent in the position. And that appointment was recommended to be approved with all four councilors who were present voting yes, and we had 1 absent. We then moved on to the confirmation of the promotion of Sean Sheehan to the position of police captain. Our Chief Benford was there and provided an introduction for all of our candidates, noting they all passed the civil service exam and a competitive interview process. Regarding Lieutenant Sheehan, the chief noted he has over 23 years of service with SPD, has a law degree, has worked for the Department of Defense, and has served in various supervisor and leadership roles. Similarly, our committee asked Lieutenant Sheehan lots of questions about his past experiences and community experience, and that item was recommended to be approved with 3 councilors voting yes and 1 no and 1 absent. Our next item was confirmation of the promotion of Paul Anderson to the position of police lieutenant. Chief Benford introduced the candidate and shared his background. He has dual master's degrees in criminal justice and national security, has worked for SPD for 11 years as an Army veteran, and oversees operational scheduling for SPD. In his current role, he's also a bridge between frontline officers and senior management, and he was born and raised in Somerville, going on 12 years with our police department, and has always had a goal of becoming a police officer. And that appointment was approved with all 4 members present voting yes and 1 absent. And our last appointment was the confirmation of the promotion of Juan Ducas Ayala to the position of police sergeant. Chief Benford introduced the candidate, noting he has a BA in criminal justice and is bilingual in English and Spanish, Spanish being his first language. Noted that Officer Ayala also immigrated to the U.S. from the Dominican Republic. Similarly, we asked lots of questions about his background and experience, focused on his work on the crisis intervention training program and some of the other trainings that he's done. And that appointment was recommended to be approved by all 4 members who were present. We had 1 absent. And with that, I ask that our committee report be approved as submitted.
Excellent. Let's vote on this committee report and then sign the big books.
On the committee report, Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Councilor Said.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Burnley.
Aye.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Pineda-Newfeld.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
With all councilors in favor, that item is approved.
Excellent.
And for those of you who were just promoted, let's get you sworn in.
Please, come on up. And if anyone wants to come up and take photos, you're more than welcome. You can come in here, you can go over there, wherever you like. And I'll also say we're going to have a recess right after this for family photos, so you'll have plenty of time.
Do you solemnly affirm that you will faithfully perform the duties of appointment on you as captain of the Somerville Police Department, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, under the pains of Do you solemnly affirm that you will faithfully perform the duties incumbent on you as a lieutenant for the police department of the Somerville, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, under the pains and penalties of perjury? Then I'm going to have you sign right next to where your name is printed right there. Congratulations. All right, you're ready. Do you solemnly affirm that you will faithfully perform the duties incumbent on you as sergeant for the police department, city of Somerville, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, under the pains and penalties of perjury? Then I'm going to have you sign. Just saying that same thing right next to where your name is printed. Congratulations.
All right, we will stand in recess for 10 minutes. Make yourselves at home for photos, etc.
Present.
Counselor Said.
Present.
Counselor Scott.
Present.
Counselor Mba. Counselor Burnley.
Present.
Counselor Klingon.
Present.
Counselor Strezzo.
Present.
Counselor Pineda-Neufeld.
Present.
Counselor Ewan-Campen.
Here.
With 10 counselors present and 1 absent, we have a quorum.
Next item, please.
Next item that is being taken out of order is going to be item 10.2. An ordinance by Counselor Burnley, amending sections 931 through 944 of the Code of Ordinances to support the end of wage theft.
Counselor Burnley.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, we hear you.
Wonderful. Thank you, colleagues. As you all know, 8 months ago, I put in an order to start to revise the wage theft ordinance in order to ensure that the quorum issues that have plagued the Wage Theft Advisory Committee for years could be resolved. It took me a bit longer than I had assumed because there were plenty of issues with the construction of the committee that were needed to be revisited with the support of our city solicitors and our law department. But we are here now. We have the opportunity to ensure that this committee can be a vibrant, active part of discussions with workers across the city. And I would love to thank the folks who made this possible, from the law department to the advocates who've been in constant communication with me to push forward progress on this. And I'd love to sponsor as well Marcy Goldstein-Gelb, who I believe is in person, to speak on the item.
Excellent. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I, longtime Somerville resident and work professionally in both.
And what is your name?
Oh, sorry. I thought I heard it said, but I am Marcy Goldstein-Gelb, living 74 Boston Avenue. And I want to thank each and every one of you because you've all played an important role in working toward a way that the city can ensure that we have a community where workers are paid fairly, treated with respect, and that businesses that follow labor laws can thrive. And as Councilor Burnley mentioned, this wage theft ordinance has been an important step in that direction, but there have been a number of barriers. And I just want to quickly remind everybody that we all know that state and federal labor agencies play a critical role in protecting workers, but that the city has really powerful tools, permits, licenses, contracts, to really ensure ethical business practices. And many cities across the country are using these tools to foster a just economy. The wage theft ordinance was an important step, and the recent funding for a staff position, again, thanks to you all, is another really critical step. But as Councilor Burnley mentioned, that advisory committee needs to be active and functioning, and they struggled to meet quorum because it was too large and included outdated organizational representatives. And so that is one key component of the amendment. So I'm going to just give one anecdote which I think needs to emphasize why this is so important. Recently, we saw the potential of why this ordinance needs to be strong. Many of you may be aware that workers at Soundbites in Ball Square, a few blocks from my house, were grossly underpaid by tens of thousands of dollars, and when they sought to recover their wages through the Department of Labor, the owner threatened them physically, workers and families. They finally, with support from the community, did receive their pay, but the owner, when he sold the business, the new owner failed to communicate at all with the workers. They didn't even know they had a new owner, and they failed to get any of the licenses needed, so continuing really poor practices. But when the case came before the Licensing Commission, the workers were aware of the wage theft ordinance. They submitted a letter and shared their story, their experience, urging the commission to grant the license, But the condition was that the employer needed to follow labor laws and to respect the workers. And the commission cited the wage theft ordinance and, in fact, got a commitment from the new owner that they would ensure and respect the workers' rights. So this is just one of, the beginning of what the potential is. So I just want to urge you to move forward with these amendments as soon as possible, and happy to lend my time and support as needed. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work, and thank you, Councilor Burnley. Did you have more on this?
Yes, just briefly. I mean, I know that, we want to keep the docket clean in the committees. I hope we'll get a chance to go into legislative matters in the upcoming year. But I just want to make sure we're emphasizing the importance of stating clearly and unequivocally as a city that wage theft is not tolerated here, that when businesses maliciously and underhandedly steal from their workers, that this city, after adjudication and investigation, will side with the workers. We want to be a union town. We want to be one that is pro-worker. We want to make sure that people who work here have the means to live here and thrive here. And so getting this done as quickly as possible come 2025 is top of my priority list. And I leave it to the president and the chair of legislative matters to determine whether we can move this to committee now or whether I should resubmit it in the new year.
We'll refer this to legislative matters now. Thank you very much, Councilor Burnley. This is really important work, and I share the extreme high prioritization of this. Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I echo that gratitude. We had a conversation on this in legislative matters in an early iteration, so I want to thank the good councilor at large and everyone who put some work into putting forth a even more robust and better, what I'm sure will be a better proposed amendment. Just a clarification on the procedure. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, either through you or to the clerk, as this will be referred to the committee for recommendation, I believe it stays in committee through next year, so no further action taken. It'll be there when whomever is the chair of legislative matters, whether that's me or someone else, to pick it up in the new year and get moving on it, correct? Okay, thank you.
Excellent. That item is referred to legislative matters. And Madam Clerk, another item that I failed to mention I'd like to take up early is 4.8. 4.6? Councilor Scott, is it 4.8? 4.6, excuse me.
4.6 is an order by Councilor Scott that the Director of Mobility and the Director of Engineering appear before this council to discuss the preparation of a change order to revert to the design of the bike lane entrance at Washington Street and Webster Avenue to the original 100% plans.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you. This is a little bit circuitous, but in addition to the accolades going to the engineering department, the Washington Street redesign project is in its final stages of construction, and I firmly believe that it is a great project in no small part due to the extensive input from bicycle advocates and neighbors all up and down that corridor. One of the great things about having so many residents actively involved in the process is that every time a design iteration came through, there were lots of people looking at it and providing feedback. And so when the final 100% plans were posted in July of 2024, it was reviewed and got a big thumbs up. Of course, everybody's still got their tidbits that they'd like differently, but fairly unanimous support. So it came as a great surprise to myself and to other advocates when the implementation of it right there at its terminus in Union Square wasn't what was on those plans. Since then, I've discovered that it was actually a revision, a revised plan, revised final 100% plan that was submitted in September of 2024, but September of 2023, my apologies, but was never actually posted until we asked about it just now. So there was no chance for anybody in the public to actually catch this and provide feedback, which is unfortunate, but hey, it's a miss. Sometimes that happens. I just want to see things get taken correctly. I've been contacted by a great many folks in the Somerville bike bus and other users of that path because the entrance is fairly scary. I mean, Mr. President, you bicycle past that. So I put in this order. Hopefully we will have a thorough discussion. I think this is a chance to rectify a mistake, and as our former colleague from Ward 5 once said famously, it's never too late to fix a mistake. Even if it does cost some money, I'd like to make sure we get this right. So this is an item that I hope goes to committee, and we'll have neighbors invited to that committee to have that discussion with engineering before the council. And to speak any further on this, I know we have some bike bus people here. I'd like to sponsor Roberto Fisher to come up and say a few words about it. Thank you.
Welcome, and I'd like to co-sponsor this as well.
Hi, so my name is Roberto Fisher. I live on 10 Beach Street. So first of all, thanks Councilor Scott for sponsoring me, allowing me to speak here in front of everyone. I'm here with some of my friends. I have Ty Pearson and Jonathan Foster. I don't know if we can say that we do run or if we used to run the bike bus to the Argenciano School. We all are Argenciano parents. And it is, as Councilor Scott said, to a lot of our disappointment on how the bike lane got implemented. We understand that this was a project that we really, really wanted to get done. We've had some situations where one of them had an 18-wheeler overtake with a bunch of kids there. So all we're looking for is really just the safety of all the adults, all the children who are biking there, for the Somerville bike network to really be an 8 to 80 network. I think this is what's passed in the ordinance. This is what everyone here is going after. And this is what I would like for the city staff, for the transportation department to be able to uphold. The biggest issue that we have right now is that really the entrance to the bike lane is outright dangerous. And I think it is urgently in need of rectification. So I don't know if there's anything else that I would want to add, but thank you for allowing me to speak.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. And we will refer this item to traffic and parking, and we'll get the relevant city staff here to discuss how we can move forward. Councilor Mba would like to co-sponsor as well.
The next item being taken out of order then is item 7.1, a request of the mayor, requesting that this council convene an executive session to discuss and act upon satisfaction options in the matter of Cobble Hill Center LLC versus the Somerville Redevelopment Authority.
Excellent. Members of the public, I apologize that we have to go into executive session to discuss something, but we do, and we are paying outside counsel by the hour to be here, so we have to take it up early in the night. For that, I apologize. Let's take a roll call to go into executive session on this item.
To go into executive session, Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Councilor Said.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Burnley.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Pineda-Neufeld.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Yes.
With all councilors in favor, that motion is approved.
Excellent. We will reconvene in open session after this. All right, colleagues, we're going to come back. Let's call the roll to establish quorum, please.
This is roll call. Counselor McLaughlin.
Here.
Counselor Davis.
Here.
Counselor Wilson.
Present.
Counselor Said.
Here.
Counselor Scott. Present. Counselor Mba.
Aye.
Counselor Burnley.
Present.
Nope. Counselor Burnley.
Present.
Got it. Counselor Klingon.
Present.
Counselor Strezzo. Counselor Pineda-Neufeld. Counselor Ewan-Campen.
Here.
With all counselors present, we have a quorum.
Thank you all. There were 3 votes taken in executive session in addition to the vote to adjourn. Now that these items have been approved by the council, we will take those votes again in open session so that they are recorded in the minutes. Clerk, please read those items and call the roll.
This will be on item 24-1720, appropriating $12 million from free cash to the judgments and settlements account. Item 24-1721, appropriating $94,536 from receipts reserved for appropriation supplemental state aid to judgments and settlements. And item 24-1722, bonding $14.4 million for the purchase of 90 Washington Street. On those 3 items, Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
Counselor Wilson.
Yes.
Counselor Said.
Yes.
Counselor Scott.
Yes, please.
Counselor Mba.
Yes.
Counselor Burnley.
Yes.
Counselor Klingon.
Yes.
Counselor Strezzo.
Yes.
Counselor Pineda-Neufeld.
Yes.
Counselor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
With all counselors in favor, those items are approved.
Mr. President, I'd like to move for reconsideration, hopes that it fails.
Councilor Pineda-Neufeld moves for reconsideration in hope that it fails. Are there any counselors wishing to change their votes? We need to roll call this, don't we?
We do. Should have seen that coming, but I didn't, so give me 1 second.
So,
it
colleagues,
interesting.
if you would like to keep the vote you just made, say no on this one.
All right. On reconsideration of items 24-1720, 24-1721, and 24-1722, Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes. No.
Counselor Davis.
No.
Counselor Wilson.
No.
Counselor Said.
No.
Counselor Scott.
No.
Counselor Mba.
No.
Counselor Burnley.
No.
Counselor Klingon.
No.
Counselor Strezzo.
No.
Counselor Pineda-Neufeld.
No.
Counselor Ewan-Campen.
No.
With no counselors in favor and 11 opposed, reconsideration has failed, and those items stand approved.
All right, colleagues, we are almost halfway done with the items that we're taking out of order at the top of the agenda. Then we can start the real meeting. Next item, please.
The next item is going to be item 8.3, which is an officer's communication from the Executive Director of the Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development, conveying an update on market conditions and available tools to stimulate growth.
Director Galagani, get back in here. All right, we'll give him a second and then lay this on the table. Can we take up 712, lay this on the table and take up 712?
Item 7.12 is a request of the mayor requesting approval to accept and expend a $26,502.44 grant with no new match required from the University of Massachusetts Chan Medical School to the Health and Human Services Department for SNAP outreach assistance.
Questions, comments? Laid on the table for approval. 979, please.
Item 7.9 is a request of the mayor requesting approval to accept and expend a $75,350 grant with no new match required from the Massachusetts Office on Disability to the Department of Racial and Social Justice for the completion of an ADA self-evaluation and transition plan.
Questions, comments? That item is laid on the table for approval. 7.5, please.
Item 7.5 is a request of the mayor requesting approval to use available funds in the Summer Viva salaries account in the amount of $36,911 to fund an increase of the legal services coordinator and immigration policy analyst position from part-time to full-time.
Questions, comments? I see the director of SOIA is here. That item is laid on the table for approval. Thank you for being here. Can someone from the IGA team hold up your fingers for how many minutes Director Galagani needs? 1. Okay, let's not take up the Land Use Committee quite yet. Sorry, colleagues. This is a good time if you want to just kind of reflect. Yes. Market conditions are about to change again on our appetite to hear this update. All right. I think we're done waiting for the moment. Let's take up land use.
That's going to be item 6D, a report of the Committee on Land Use, meeting on a day that I will tell you in just a moment. Meeting on December 5th, 2024.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met on that date. Councilor Davis chaired because I had some childcare duties, but all 5 councilors were in attendance. We discussed a number of items. Several items were placed on file. These are items that we either got an update for or didn't get an update for because it's the end of the year and people will have to place orders again. We had 2 public hearings, one about bicycle parking and the other about change of neighborhood uses and what can be done within those neighborhood zones. So, for example, if someone wants to do an NR project within a UR district, they have to go for all sorts of special permits. This would change that. We had 2 public hearings on these items. Not many people showed up to discuss it. We did have 2 substantive votes that night. One was in, let's see, let me just read it. So one was, of course, about the various parking requirements in the city, basically getting rid of mandatory minimum parking, which already exists for 70% of the city. This goes to the final 30%. We discussed that. All 5 councilors voted in favor of that. And then we also had a zoning map change from NR to UR for 501 Mystic Valley Parkway, which also was passed 5-0. So I can answer more questions there, but I submit the committee report to be accepted.
Excellent. So the committee report is, I guess we roll call that to put the items before us, and then if there are questions on the items coming out, we'll take those up.
On the committee report, Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Councilor Said.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Aye.
Councilor Burnley.
Aye.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo. Councilor Pineda-Neufeld.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
With 10 councilors in favor and 1 absent, that committee report is approved.
Which item is first?
So we have next, let's see, great question. We have next item 24-1197, an amendment to the zoning ordinance to address various parking requirements.
Just before we get to questions, comments, 2, I think, relevant pieces of information that came from our conversation about removing parking minimums. The effective date was changed to February 1st of 2025. That is, originally came as a recommendation of the planning board, but it ultimately was also the recommendation of the mobility staff because they are diligently working to change the development submittal reforms that all developers provide to the city in order to more explicitly capture information about ADA compliant parking near the developments, and especially as those issues pertain to developments where there's going to be less parking than there otherwise would have been. How do we ensure that these developments continue to be accessible? In order to get those forms updated, the staff recommended that we have an effective date of February 1st. And because I know there was a lot of very good conversation, in particular coming from the Commission for Persons with Disability and also from Somerville Cambridge Elder Services, I just wanted to emphasize that that feedback was really valued and was taken into consideration, and the way that it was ultimately agreed upon by the committee is to be captured in these new submittal forms. So these concerns are very much top of mind for the administration and for the council. And I think all of us feel like the very serious parking challenges that are experienced across Somerville will continue to need to be addressed through curb use management. I know several of us as councilors have put in recent orders around where are we in actually implementing the recommendations of our curb use study to make loading parking available, parking for in-home health care. And that really needs to be a separate conversation from just arbitrarily requiring excess parking being built where in the situations where it's not needed. Are there questions and comments on this? Councilor Wilson?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. You mentioned the topic of accessible parking. That was one thing that we definitely heard concerns about from the community. If we'd had more time, I would have loved to have, I did some work on this. I spoke with Director Bartman, and I would have loved to have gotten to a point where we had something ready to put in there that would have addressed that in the zoning. There wasn't sufficient time to do that, so I intend, to basically go back, and honestly, with more of a, this ordinance change is really just the small part of the city that is not already in a transit area. So what I would have in mind is actually more of a sweeping look at the city and going citywide to make sure, not just on the parking front, but going through our zoning and seeing what we can do to do better by those with accessibility needs. So, yeah, I got to a point where I support getting rid of parking mins, and I'm content to come back in a separate process and work with the Commission with Persons with Disabilities and PPZ and our legislative and policy analyst to see what can be done on that front. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Klingon.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the committee report, specifically on the parking minimums, I too have had conversations, and I do want to continue those conversations around curb use. I'll probably misquote the numbers, but as it stands now, even just in terms of handicap parking, I think out of 30,000 spots in Somerville, we have about 200 dedicated to handicap spaces, and I think even 5% of that would be something around 1,500 or something like that. I just want to say that I will support this, but I know that I want to make sure that we're all steadfast in that a property cannot get a parking permit. I think that's a really important piece of this, especially to people in areas that are going to be affected from this, that aren't currently in that 70%, but are mostly neighborhoods. That's not up to us, it's up to the Traffic Commission. So I just want to put that on everybody's radar that, these are discussions that are all going to have to happen in the wake of this passing. And I too am continuing to have conversations with the Person with Disabilities Commissioner as well as others around how we can meet the needs in other ways in terms of parking outside of requiring it to be built. So, but I will be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, let's call the roll, please.
This is on item 24-1197, requesting ordainment of an amendment to various sections of the zoning ordinance to address various parking requirements. On enrollment, Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Councilor Said.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Burnley.
Aye.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo. Councilor Pena-Neufeld.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
With 10 councilors in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent, that item is enrolled. And on ordainment, Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Councilor Said.
Yes.
Councilor Scott. Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Burnley.
Aye.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo. Councilor Pena-Neufeld.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
With 10 councilors in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent, that item is ordained. And the next item before the council is item 24-1367, an amendment to the zoning map to change 501 Mystic Valley Parkway from NR to UR. On enrollment, Council.
Are there any questions, I should say? We discussed this in great length. This is in Ward 7, and the Ward Councilor Pineda-Neufeld spoke very eloquently on the extensive community process that has led to this. It is going from, my recollection, it's currently NR, which would allow maximum of about 4 units. With UR, it's 60. So this is a mismatch between what is possible and what the current zoning is. Councilor Klingon?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, no question, just a comment. I did watch the meeting and listen to all the discussion, and I just want to commend Councilor Pineda-Neufeld for keeping to her commitment to build more housing. And I know it's not that end of Somerville tends to be very much NIMBY and like things the way they are, and I think this really shows her commitment to those issues, and I'll be supporting.
Very well. On that item.
On enrollment, Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Councilor Said.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Burnley.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Counselor Strezzo. Counselor Pineda Newfeld.
Yes.
Counselor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
With 10 counselors in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent, that item is enrolled. And on ordainment, Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
Counselor Wilson.
Yes.
Counselor Said.
Yes.
Counselor Scott.
Yes.
Counselor Mba.
Yes.
Counselor Burnley.
Yes.
Counselor Klingon.
Yes.
Counselor Strezzo. Counselor Pineda Newfeld.
Yes.
Counselor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
With 10 counselors in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent, that item is ordained. And I believe we are going to return to item 8.3 and take that off the table, which is an officer's communication from the Executive Director of the Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development, conveying an update on market conditions and available tools to stimulate growth.
Excellent. We have 2 directors here. Welcome.
Yeah, Economic Development Director Ned Carney is also here in the audience, and I'm glad she's here. Thank you, Mr. President, and to the council. Thanks for this opportunity. About 6 months ago, we spent about an hour talking about market conditions. Hopefully, we're not spending that much time today. I want to give you a fairly brief update as to where we are. At the time, we were recognizing that there are challenges in the lab market, the commercial lab market, and also in the housing market in Somerville. And we did some brainstorming, bringing in some stakeholders and some elected officials and some developers and land property owners to really discuss what the issues are and to identify some potential tools that might be useful to fill commercial space and jumpstart housing production, particularly on large multifamily developments. We came to you and we promised that we would take your feedback, work over the summer, work with some of you, and work with some of those developers to identify some really important strategies to jumpstart these developments. We really asked one essential question. Is the problem so big that we can't solve it, or is it manageable enough that the city, with its own resources and own tools, could actually make a difference in moving the needle and starting some projects? And the answer that we got from almost everybody is, yeah, there's something you can do. There are some tools that we can use, and I want to talk to you about some of those tools and talk about what might that lead to when we come back from the holiday break. First, with commercial lab, it's still a very slow market. It's starting to show some signs of life. But just to put it into some round numbers, there's 1.8 million square feet of vacant lab space in Somerville. That's out of 2.8 million square feet in total in Somerville. So we've got 1 million filled, 1.8 million that is empty. And there's 18 million square feet of lab space in the region that's coming online, is ready to be leased. Our best estimates are that there's about 1.5 million square feet of absorption in the region. So companies expanding, taking on more space. So they take 1.5 on average, million square feet on average. So the simple numbers are, it might take 12 years for us to fill up that space in the market and 12 years to fill that up here in Somerville. And in the meantime, there's probably not going to be a lot of activity in terms of new lab buildings being built. And again, we've relied on new lab buildings over the last 5 years to really stimulate some of the growth in our tax revenues. And it's been a real key piece to helping us afford the things that we want to spend in our community to achieve our goals. There's this, talking to Frank Golden, our assessor, there's this 60% rule of lab buildings that I'm going to call it. Vacant buildings, a vacant lab building, the ones you see around our community, they're taxed at about 60% of their potential. The other 40% of the value comes when companies move in, they fit out those buildings, they move in laboratory equipment, all that. So there's still a huge amount of value left untapped in those buildings so long as they stay vacant. We've got 7 vacant lab buildings in the city right now, and this, if they were all full, would yield about another $13 million per year in tax revenue. So that's an enormous amount of untapped potential there to help us solve the problems that we want to solve every day. If it took us 12 years to fill up that space, we would collect about $57 million in new revenue over 10 years, gradually, little by little, as the market would tell us on average that we would absorb that space. If we were to double that, and if we were fortunate enough to double that, we would collect about $95 million over the next 10 years. So obviously that's a $38 million difference. Can you think of anything you might need $38 million to spend in this community to make lives better for everybody? I bet you could. This says nothing about the economic impact that would result from filling up these buildings with people and the spend that those people will produce in local businesses, restaurants, dry cleaners, everything else in our community. It's a substantial opportunity. And we look at the available tools to us, they're quite limited. We really have two things that we could possibly do. Number one, we could encourage new companies to come into our community with a tax phase-in or a tax break. We talked about that a couple, 6 months ago. It's actually called the Economic Development Incentive Program that the state offers, allows communities to do tax increment financing or a tax break for these companies. And that is often controversial. And I would expect that you would want us to take a hard look at whether or not we want to use those tools to stimulate lab growth. But given that we have, potentially $38 million that we could make a move on, I think that's something that we really seriously want to consider. I don't know what that means precisely, but I know I've had, and Director Ned Carney have had conversations with some of our life science landowners and building owners and talking to them about what would it take. Are there ways for us to collaborate? Is there a way we can generate some excitement in the market and perhaps sending the signal that tax breaks are something that the city might want to do that might put us in a little better stead than our competitors in Cambridge, in Waltham, in Watertown, and in Boston. We're going to continue to work with these partners. Again, there are 7 owners with empty lab buildings that are dying to fill up that space, and see where that leads. The second thing that I think is really helpful, could be really helpful, is event and targeted industry marketing. So we talked 6 months ago about I think we talked 6 months ago about the Bio International Conference, and that's something that Director Ned Carney and her team have participated in partnership with state officials and also our regional partners, and putting a little bit more emphasis on that event to generate some excitement. It's also something that the director has done over the last year, and using some ARPA money to do some some marketing of our squares around the city to generate some excitement and attraction for our small businesses. We've built some muscles over the last year in terms of doing some community marketing, and we think turning our attention to targeted marketing to life science companies to fill up our space would be a good use of money. And geez, it's not like we have money growing on trees, but we do have some of those developer contributions that have made for some of these large projects. And one thought we had is to pool some of those resources and talk to our building owners, see if we can partner and see if they could match the funds that they've already paid us with those development impact fees, to put a pool of money together to really have a meaningful, sustainable, targeted marketing effort to put Somerville on the map so that we can outcompete, hopefully, and create enough attention that we can outcompete our competitors, and our competitors are in Cambridge and Waltham and Boston and all those places. So that's something that we may come back to you in the next, after the new year, to come with you to authorize some spending with some of those dollars. And we've got some meetings set up with some of our development partners to see how interested they might be in collaborating with us. So, it's a tall hill to climb, but it may be worth the opportunity. Certainly $38 million gets my attention. The other thing that I wanted to talk about and update you on is on the housing market. And we've read the paper, we see that developing large-scale, mid-rise, and high-rise apartment complexes in this market is very difficult. We still have the churn of small projects happening in our neighborhood, and that's continuing, although we are noticing the data, and it's slowing down, even those smaller projects. And we're hearing of some consolidation of some of those smaller developers who are selling out to others because they're just not in a position to be able to launch their projects. But so far, so good. Still, things are happening, but overall, when we look at the pipeline of projects, it's definitely slowing down this year. We see it in the numbers, and our projections moving forward, and what kind of projects are on in our pipeline. It's definitely, we're going to see some sort of tail off in 2025 and 2026. There's just not much that has gone through the planning board in the last year, in 18 months, to give us confidence that there's going to be a lot of production. And we still have some projects that we're desperately trying to launch, especially some of these critical affordable housing projects like Clarendon Hills, trying to get the next stage of that project done, and also 299 Broadway. We're spending a lot of time trying to keep those projects moving forward so that they break ground in 2025. In terms of tools that we have, it really comes down to, I would call, 4 different groups of tools. Number one, we have zoning, which you are all familiar with. You are in control of that world. And we've worked with Councilor McLaughlin, who has a very keen interest in increasing density around transit stops and along some of our larger commercial streets. And that's something we want to continue to do. That can certainly be a mid to long-term solution to unlock more housing productivity. And you have taken the lead as a council to look at different areas to zone, to encourage specific projects to launch. So I certainly appreciate that. A second tool that we've used to launch some projects in this city is called the 40B process, the friendly 40B process, in which the state allows us to do a comprehensive permit as a means of trying to advance affordable housing projects. It allows you to take all the various different permits that one would need to launch a project in Somerville and put it into one permitting process through the Zoning Board of Appeals. We've used that in 2 cases since I've been here at Clarendon Hills, where it preceded a large, extensive community conversation before we decided to use that tool, that expedited tool. And we've got some units, obviously, to claim. And also at 299 Broadway, we all decided after a multi-year community process that this would be the right tool to help implement the community's vision. I think there's some opportunity to look at friendly 40Bs as a tool. I don't think that is the way we want to operate in a general sense. I think we want to do thoughtful rezoning, but there might be opportunities. And I definitely I've seen some opportunities at different sites around the city where that might be something we want to talk to you about. Second group of tools I want to talk to you about is property tax phase-in or some sort of tax break. We did this with, the first tool is called UCTIF, U-C-H-T-I-F, and we use that tool to provide, something like $16 million worth of subsidy to the 299 Broadway project. So in certain projects where there's a very compelling public interest, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think I can commend this council because we came to you a couple years ago saying this is a tool we want to use, we've never used, and you were open to that. You thought it was a really good use of our public resources. I think there's some opportunities to jumpstart some projects that have been dying on the vine, to give them some level of tax break in order to jumpstart projects today, whereas we might be waiting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years for some of those projects to launch. Think of the projects in your neighborhood that you know have been fully permitted, maybe fully permitted for years, that are just sitting there, and the question is, why aren't they launching? The economics, in many cases, it's because the economics don't work. In some cases, there's an interesting situation with the property owner, or maybe the condition is both. The downside of UCTIF is that it is laborious for staff. There are many restrictions on where you can use it. You can only use it in commercial districts. There's all sorts of paperwork that's involved and requirements and review by the state. 2 years ago, the state came out with a new tool. It was kind of hidden in the legislation in 2023. It's called Mass General Law 51-50 or 51-50. And it allows us to do the same kinds of things that we could do with UCTIF without all the regulations. So it allows communities to really custom design the kind of tax incentive that they want to create to maximize the opportunities that they want to focus on. And this is something that we're actively looking at. Our friends in Boston have reached out to us too. Or are you looking at this too? And the word is starting to spread about the availability of this tool. And we are in the process as a staff to evaluate this. And again, it's kind of choose your own adventure. What problem do you want to solve with respect to affordable housing or market rate housing? And you can design a tax incentive program in order to make that happen. You could, for instance, limit it to a certain amount of units. In the next 2 years, we want to do 500 units and make it available for the first as an incentive for those folks to get their project launched. there's all sorts of things you can do. And it's something I want to have a conversation about with this council when we come back after the new year. In certain projects where it helps achieve the values that we want to achieve, I think that might be a really valuable tool. The third set of tools that we have are financing tools, and we really don't have a lot of money to lend to people to launch projects. But we will be coming to you after the new year using our most powerful funding tool, and that's Section 108, the Section 108 loan program, which allows us to borrow against future CDBG entitlement. We get about $3 million in CDBG, or $2.5 million in CDBG, federal CDBG funds every year. We're able to borrow 10 times that amount. So we could borrow theoretically $12.5 million to launch a project. We are going to be coming to you sometime in the new year to help us jumpstart the second phase of the Clarendon Hill project using Section 108. What we're going to be doing is building a bridge that's going to allow us to finance the second phase of that project with our partners at POA, with our partners at the Housing Authority, and with our partners at the state who have provided some funding to jumpstart that project, certainly ahead of schedule. So that's coming down the pike. And we also took a look last spring at this federal tax code 63-20, which allows for some creative financing vehicle for mostly workforce housing, but could be fashioned to meet the demands or the requirements of people who do our typical 20% inclusionary projects. We haven't had any conversation. We had a little rush of excitement, and I know Councilor Wilson, I think, participated in that conversation. And we had a little bit of excitement in this room here with folks saying, oh, this is great, let's try this. Haven't really heard much success of people putting together a deal using that tool, but still it's something else that we have. The final one is probably the most controversial one, which is the one we talked about 6 months ago. And we have very specific cases in this community where we can think about phasing in our inclusionary housing. We have been told by all of our developers that, geez, we have all these headwinds facing us in trying to launch housing. One of which that the city controls is our 20% inclusionary housing rate. And I would never come to you to say that we need to lower that. That is essential for us to, long-term, to help meet our goals in Summer Vision, our goal of creating 20% affordable housing. But there may be an opportunity to rethink it about it on a short-term basis to phase in that inclusionary rate. In order to jumpstart a project today, instead of maybe waiting 4 or 5 years, could we think as a concept to start with 10% inclusionary as the project opens and then ramp that up over a period of 5 or 10 years up to the 20%, or maybe even go beyond to 22 or 25% if the numbers made sense? Is that something that would give developers a little bit of a cushion so that they could launch a project they otherwise couldn't launch? We're exploring that now with one project, one specific project that has that availability, but that's something that actually may not come to this city council, but the path forward might be through the zoning board. But that's something that we're considering as a means of launching a substantial project today instead of waiting for the market to recover, which by some estimates may take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years to allow the economics to work for these projects to launch. So that's what I have for you here. A lot of follow-up over the holidays. We'll be coming back with specific projects and hoping to engage with each of you on an individual basis. If you have projects in your neighborhood that you desperately want to get launched, I don't know, maybe you have a pit in Ward 7 that maybe you want to get launched. I know there's something we could do, and of course I'm joking because we have been talking about it and talking with that property owner. So there is some hope. If we want to have some agency, I'm here to tell you that we can do things to actually impact our community if it meets our expectations about community values. Again, we love the tax revenue that new development comes with. We love the affordable housing that inclusionary housing comes with. Are we willing to sacrifice some portion of that on a short-term basis in order to get some projects launched and get some people moving into our community, whether it's working or living? So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I realize you've got a long night ahead of you, but I'm here. Let me know what you need.
Thank you, Director. I would really prefer to not have questions if colleagues are okay with that, just given the hour. This is obviously incredibly consequential stuff that we all care deeply about and will be coming back to us, but I think probably right now is not the time for a back and forth on nuances of inclusionary zoning. Thank you, Director.
Thanks for your time.
the update.
And that will return us to the regular order of business. And item 4.1, an order by Councilor Ewan Campen that the Director of Mobility develop safety measures for the slip lane at the intersection of Elm Street, Somerville Avenue, and Craigie Street, also known as Wilson Park.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Thank you. Folks are probably familiar. If you're driving on Somerville Ave, right at the beginning of Elm Street, there's this strange slip lane. And the reason I put in this order is because there is a new residential development being proposed for the corner lot right on Craigie Street there. And it's just a very, very dangerous and difficult intersection because cars are both continuing straight on Somerville Ave and are turning onto Elm Street. And with a new, apartment building being proposed there, I think all of us are worried about visibility. With the Elm Street bike lane project being taken up now, my understanding is that there's currently not the capacity to include what we call Wilson Park, that little slip lane. But I'm hoping with this development coming that we can take a second look on something that we can do to make that intersection a lot safer. So I'd ask this to go to traffic and parking, please.
Okay, let's send this to traffic and parking. Next item.
Item 4.2 is an order by Councilor Ewan Campen that the Director of Parking develop a comprehensive plan to streamline the process for parking permits for in-home elder care and health providers, including Meals on Wheels.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Thank you, Madam President. I know this sounds generic and just asking for the sun and the moon. I had a really informative conversation with Somerville Cambridge Elder Service where they explained they're in a very specific situation where they contract with lots of different in-home care providers, folks like Meals on Wheels, home health aides, and those are really high turnover businesses. It's really hard to hire people, and people tend to move on very quickly. And the issue is that parking permits are linked to a license plate. So when a new employee comes in, they have to go through the process of getting a new permit. Our traffic and parking department does an incredible job supporting these businesses, getting them the permits out the door, but it takes time, and it's a very real challenge for these organizations. I've had conversations with Director Rinfrit in traffic and parking that it's not, in her opinion, possible to just kind of have, here are 50 permits for your business, because they, could too easily be abused. But I think there has to be some way to improve on this process. So I would just like to have a conversation where we get folks from the industry kind of managing the Meals on Wheels program and things like that in the same room with traffic and parking and talk about what is and is not possible. So I'd ask that this go to traffic and parking, please.
Thank you. Councilors Klingon, Scott, Davis, Strezzo, and Wilson would like to sign on to that. And Councilors Burnley as well. And, yep. And I'd like to sign on, and let's send that to traffic and parking.
Item 4.3 is an order by Councilors Wilson and Klingon that the Commissioner of Public Works place a new street light at the corner of Broadway and Fenwick Street to address dark conditions at an important pedestrian crossing.
Councilor Wilson?
Yeah, but thanks, Mr. President. This is a really key crossing. It's the only crosswalk on a stretch of Broadway between School and Main Street. It's a dangerous crossing on a wide multi-lane street with oftentimes speeding traffic. There's a streetlight on the south side of Broadway at Thurston, but there's nothing near the crosswalk on the north side at Fenwick. So there's a big lighting gap that leaves that crosswalk largely in the dark. It creates a really dangerous situation for pedestrians crossing there. I know adding a new light pole is a big ask, but I just want to highlight the importance of this for protecting crossing pedestrians and look into whether something might be possible there.
Did you want that to go to committee?
Yes, please.
Let's send this.
Actually, Mr. President, I'm fine having just, if people want to approve it tonight, I don't know that we need to have a whole discussion in committee about whether a new light pole is possible.
Okay, we will approve that item, and if it needs follow-up, we can resubmit.
Item 4.4 is a resolution by Councilors Wilson, Burnley, Klingon, and McLaughlin that the administration pursue harm reduction initiatives to provide alternative methods of addressing substance abuse with wraparound supports like basic health care, housing support, and recovery resources during the planning process for an overdose prevention center.
I would like to sign on Councilor Davis, Councilor Scott, Councilor Strezzo, Councilor Said, the whole council. Who's speaking on this? Councilor Wilson?
I'll speak, Mr. President. So we've been in this long-running planning phase about an overdose prevention center, AKA safe consumption site. It just makes so much sense in the meantime to let's just go ahead and roll out the other services, these wraparound healthcare, housing, and recovery services. I know Councilor McLaughlin put forward a somewhat similar item a few years back, so I guess we are once again asking that we do everything else for now while we try to figure out the OPC piece. I want to hold up Councilor Klingon for his work on harm reduction in his time here on the council and before that. And I want to thank Councilor Burnley for his work on the task force that's been working on trying to bring that overdose prevention center to the city.
That item is approved.
Item 4.5 is an order by Councilors Klingon and Wilson that the Director of Mobility and Director of Engineering create an on-demand dedicated pedestrian phase for the traffic signals at the intersection of Broadway and School Street with no turn on red signage for both eastbound Broadway traffic and northbound School Street traffic.
Councilor Klingon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, I've had many constituents through the years bring up this particular crossing. It's one of those situations where you get the pedestrian walk, but people can but the cars have the green. I'm just asking for, and actually, it's also when you're crossing Broadway as well. I'm just looking for like a all pedestrian phase, 20-second red in every direction situation, so that people can safely cross, especially people who aren't as quick as others. So I'd like this to go to traffic and parking. Hopefully we can get some measures in place that'll make it more safe up there. And I've been working with Councilor Wilson and a few constituents in the area that have brought these and other issues to our attention, and so I just want to thank him for signing on to this as well.
That item is referred to traffic and parking.
Item 4.7 is an order by Councilor Scott that the Director of Mobility add the words "except bicycles" to the do not enter and one-way signage on Hawkins Street.
Councilor Scott.
Pretty straightforward, sir. Although there are some new lane markings at the intersection of Hawkins and Washington that frankly confuse the hell out of me, so it might be nice to clarify. Thank you.
That item is approved.
Item 4.8 is an order by Councilor Scott that the Director of Mobility install "do not enter except residents and bicycles" signage at the intersections of Ivaloo and Beacon Street and Ivaloo and Park Street.
Councilor Scott.
Mr. Chair, many years ago, I stopped putting in these requests because I was informed that they do nothing. However, there is the hope that at least one person will see this sign and refrain from engaging in behavior that is inconsiderate and frankly doesn't help. The traffic on Ivaloo is horrendous as people try to circumvent the Beacon and Park intersection. So I know it would be very much appreciated by the residents of this neighborhood to at least have the symbol of a city sign saying, please, just stay on your main commuter road. Thank you.
That item is approved. Councilor Wilson would like to speak on it.
Could I just add also, even if only one person sees that and observes, it might also have the effect there where the navigation apps become aware of it and no longer send cut-through commuters down that street. So could go beyond just that one person too.
The next item is item 4.9, an order by Councilor Scott that the Director of Mobility install a speed bump on Tremont Street near Tremont Place.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. This has been the year of new speed bumps in Ward 2 as our participation in the Washington Street repaving program this year. This is one that I am told could not make the list this year. It is too late for it. However, maybe this is just like at the end of budget season where we submit our wish list. Here we are at the close of the year. Please put this one on for next.
That item is approved.
Item 4.10 is an order by Councilor Scott that the Director of Housing assist this council in drafting changes to the condominium conversion ordinance to enable the Condominium Review Board to fulfill its intended function and prevent circumvention of tenants' rights.
Councilor Wilson would like to co-sponsor, as would I. Councilor Scott.
Thank you. Colleagues, I don't know if you've seen any of the Condo Review Board meetings lately, but it would be an understatement to say that the commissioners are frustrated. We worked very hard on tenant protections. We worked very hard on all the provisions of the condo conversion ordinance. We got taken to court for it. And yet, all those provisions are not helping anybody right now. Developers are routinely circumventing the process, and it needs work to put a finer point on it and to empower the commissioners with more abilities to and more resources to go and make sure that the tenants the rights the tenants have, the rights the tenants are entitled to legally, that they actually receive. I have spoken about this with our LPA, our legislative policy analyst. I have spoken about this with several people in the city administration, and I'm frustrated. So I would love for this to go into a committee so that all of the reasons why it can't be done or whatever can't be done can be discussed publicly, and then we can have a public discussion about how we are going to actually stand behind our values that we used when we were creating the original ordinance. So I would love to have this referred to a committee, Mr. Chair. Legislative matters probably makes the most sense.
Councilor Said Strezzo would like to co-sponsor, Klingon, Councilor, I saw Wilson, Mba, and then Davis. Councilor Wilson.
Yeah, Mr. President, it was a couple months back, I think, this council got an email from the vice chair of the Condo Review Board, Kate Byrne, detailing a lot of those frustrations. And yeah, it'd been clear that there are problems with it, and they were spelled out there in that email. And I just hope we're able to, you know, figure out how people are gaming this and close some of those loopholes and do much better.
Councilor Mba.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Just you stole my thunder, the good Councilor Wilson, but Councilor Scott, thank you. You continue to be a force, you know, for good on this council. Thank you.
Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to sign on. You know, I think this can be sent to committee. It'll be sent for discussion, which means it'll be out of committee as, if I understand the process right, it actually won't be in the committee starting next year, but I think that's probably okay because it strikes me that this is, you know, as has been our practice recently, the type of thing that we should engage in that conversation with the legislative policy analyst, with the director of housing stability was a huge asset in the prior two rounds of amendments to this ordinance. So, you know, happy to have it resubmitted in January and have that sort of, you know, launch the discussion conversation, but you know, until we sort of have the flesh out what can and can't be done, there's not a, you know, well, I guess I'll leave it at that. This would have to be resubmitted next year to have a discussion in committee, or we could just have those discussions and you know, if we come up with any ideas, then they could actually be submitted as proposed amendments. Either way, I just wanted to note that procedural kind of glitch.
Thank you. That, Councilor Klingon on this.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I just noticed on the order it says Director of Housing. I heard the Director of Housing Stability mentioned, and I just want to say that, you know, we all got that email, and I've also heard from other folks about this, and I have spoken to Director Schachter about this, and I know it's on her radar. I know it's something that she's looking to do whatever we can within the limits of the laws. So I just wanted to just note that and if, you know, if anybody can figure it out, I mean, Ellen's been a housing lawyer for forever. I'm hoping that we can have that discussion and maybe make some headway in putting some more teeth into this ordinance. Thank you.
This item is referred to legislative matters.
Item 4.11 is a communication by Councilor Scott in her capacity as chair of the Charter Review Special Committee, conveying an update on the status of charter negotiations with the mayor.
Councilor Scott.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this council met almost exactly a month ago, November 13th, where at the conclusion of it, there was some discussion about how to proceed with negotiations with the mayor. And shortly thereafter, the clerk compiled everybody's preferences on who would be on a small negotiating committee that would hopefully be able to work in a tight loop with the mayor and the mayor's staff to draw this entire charter process to a close. They met shortly thereafter with Clerk Wells and a representative from the Collins Center, who has been deeply involved in the charter process, and have not met with anybody since. My understanding is that there will be a meeting with Councilor Davis and I believe Director Singh tomorrow. I don't know if the mayor is ever going to meet with that committee, but or task force, I guess I should say. But as we come to the close of the year, I guess I just wanted everybody to know, and it's been my honor to guide this process for the last 2 years and change. Thank you, Councilor McLaughlin, for putting me at the head of that charter committee. You know, here's to next year, Mr. President. Thank you.
To next year. We're going to get them, guys. That item is placed on file.
And the next item is item 6B, a report of the Committee on Equity, Gender, Seniors, Families, and Vulnerable Populations, meeting on December 10th, 2024.
Councilor Strezzo.
Can you come back to this? These are not the minutes.
Certainly.
Thank you.
This item is laid on the table.
The next item is item 6C, a report of the Committee on Finance, meeting on December 10th, 2024.
Councilor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. Finance Committee met on Tuesday, December 10th, with all 5 members present. Big thing we started out with was the draft Armory Master Plan. We had a presentation from Director Ned Carney of Economic Development, sort of just quickly running through what was in there, and then we did a public hearing. We had 25 members of the public speak during that hearing. We heard a fair amount of frustration from the public about the delays and general concern about the process. We pretty much, I would say, heard a universal backing of Center for Arts at the Armory as the anchor tenant and operator. There was a lot of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it sentiment from the public. And we heard a number of calls of support for getting to the request for proposal phase with that Armory operator. Then the committee members offered up just some brief high-level reactions to the draft plan. We heard a plan from Economic Development to gather feedback during December. That is, they are open, that form is open on the Summer Voice page for the Armory Master Plan. They definitely, if you're out there listening to the public, they want your feedback on this. Please give that to them here this month. Then the plan is for them to come back to this council in January with some potential tweaks based on that feedback they got. And they also would like our feedback on that as well. So I'm looking forward to digging in on this, hearing what they come up with in response to the public's thoughts, and then hopefully soon seeing a final version of that Army Master Plan. Then we unanimously recommended approval tonight of a number of items. There were 8 requests to pay prior year invoices, 3 grant acceptances, 3 time-only contract extensions, 3 appropriation items, including one that inspired a lot of enthusiasm by the committee. We heard from Commissioner Lathan about the DPW's new Let's Get Working program that consists of paid internships for Somerville High CTE juniors and seniors. And we were assured this had been signed off on by SMEA. It's not going to replace any in-house union work. It would basically mostly replace outsourced contracted work. So it seems like a great program. There was a lot, the committee was very excited about that. Speaking earlier, we said we don't always tell the good stories as a city. This is a really good story to tell. So just wanted to highlight that. And then finally, there was a transfer item, and we unanimously recommend approval of all of those. Then we got a written response to Councilor Burnley's excellent item inquiring about the ATTAIN grant and whether it might be a good source of funds for a potential north-south microtransit pilot. I'll characterize the memo that we got from Grants Development Director Kate Hartke as encouraging on that front. So I'm looking forward to see if that ends up bearing fruit down the road for us in our struggle for north-south transit in this city. Finally, we took up an older item from last year from Councilor Scott, a proposed change to the salary ordinance that would give cost of living adjustments to the compensation for the city council and school committee. We got an update from the administration that the non-union compensation study did definitely, in fact, include elected compensation, and that we can expect this to come before the council next month. So stay tuned for that. With that, I ask that this report be accepted as submitted. Thanks.
Comment on this, Councilor Strezzo? No. That committee report is laid on the table for approval, and we have some roll calls. Oh, roll call this. Yeah, okay.
So on the committee report, Councilor McLaughlin. Yes. Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Councilor Said.
Yes.
Councilor Scott. Yes. Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Burnley.
Aye.
Counselor Klingon?
Yes.
Counselor Strezzo?
Yes.
Counselor Pineda-Newfeld?
Yes.
Counselor Ewan-Campen?
Yes.
With 11 counselors in favor, that committee report is approved, and that puts 2 items before the council. Those are item 24-1547, appropriating $147,902 from the Energy Stabilization Fund, and item 24-1649, appropriating $340,000 from the Union Square Community Benefits Fund.
Take those up together.
On those items, Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes.
Counselor Davis?
Yes.
Counselor Wilson?
Yes.
Counselor Said?
Yes.
Counselor Scott?
Yes.
Counselor Mba?
Yes.
Counselor Burnley?
Aye.
Counselor Klingon?
Yes.
Counselor Strezzo?
Yes.
Counselor Pineda-Newfeld?
Yes.
Counselor Ewan-Campen?
Yes.
With 11 counselors in favor, those items are approved.
Excellent. Let's take off the Equity Committee report off the table, please.
That is item 6B, a report of the Committee on Equity, Gender, Seniors, Families, and Vulnerable Populations, meeting on December 10th, 2024.
Counselor Strezzo.
Thank you. Back at you. So the Equity Committee met Tuesday, December 10th at 7 p.m. We were hybrid, we were in person, and we were virtual. We had all committee members in. Counselor Klingon came by after a couple of agenda items. Welcome. And we discussed. We went right into it discussing a great order put forward by Councilor Pineda-Newfeld about the U.S. Surgeon General's advisory on the mental health and well-being of parents. Colleagues, if you have not read this, I wholeheartedly ask you to take a look. And we were aiming to have a conversation about this. We only received a memo, and we did not have any department heads in to discuss the item. And so we talked about the actual Surgeon General's report, and I'm just going to highlight a few stats from here. So when we talk about what parents are going through, 41% of parents in the U.S. say that most of the days they are so stressed that they cannot function, and 48% say that most days their stress is completely overwhelming compared to other adults, 20% and 26% respectively. And when we talk about maternal mental health, the leading cause of pregnancy-related deaths is mental health conditions at 22.7%, including from suicides and overdose poisoning relating to substance use disorders. And so the aim of this agenda item was to discuss how, with statistics like this, which is nationally, but we know that Somerville parents and caregivers or guardians are going through very similar stresses. The goal of this was to have a hearty discussion to help Somerville families and support how they can be supported so they can help the next generation of Somerville resident. And we didn't quite get there. And with these staggering numbers, we need to be talking about it. We need to be focusing and pivoting and working more directly with that. And so we weren't able to keep this item in committee because, as we all know, all of the agenda items will dissipate at the end of the year. So we will be putting this forward in the beginning of the new year. And then hopefully some of the department heads may stop by and we can have a conversation about it, if it's a priority, I suppose. We also talked about my order that free menstrual products be placed in all city-owned bathrooms. We had another memo. No department head stopped by, unfortunately. But they did say that there were a few free menstrual product dispensers put out through the city, including one at the Project Soup location in the Cross Street building, and a few other locations, including where vulnerable populations that they assessed would be. We also had an item that, that quite a few of you co-sponsored, that the administration installed diaper changing stations in both restrooms on the second floor of City Hall. Director Lathan said that they have the diaper changing stations and they will be installing them in January. So heck yeah, pardon me. But it's nice to have some wins. And then we had a long discussion with the Department of Water and Sewer, who stopped by with our consultants, Raf Tillis, to discuss the water sewer rates coming up and how they are innovating, how to charge for sewer rates, including credit programs for seniors, and how the water absorption and per property will affect the upcoming rates. They're still working on it and thinking about it, and we should also be updated on that. They have a plan to have more details on this in FY26 budget season time, so I respectfully ask that these minutes be approved by all of you. Thank you.
That committee report is laid on the table for approval.
The next item is item 6E, a report of the Committee on Licenses and Permits, meeting on December 11th, 2024.
Councilor Burnley.
Hello, thank you. Through the chair, we met at the time stated and had a wondrous conversation about a handful of topics. Primarily, we spent most of the meeting speaking about a number of Eversource and one Comcast grant of locations. And through them had the opportunity to talk about the issue of double poles throughout the city. As Councilor Scott referenced earlier in this meeting, he has been making excellent effort, coordinated through different departments and talking through utility companies to resolve an issue that's plagued this community for many, many years. And we settled on a strategy of having a standing item be held in this committee so that perhaps every 2 weeks, perhaps once a month, we can check in on the progress to remove the double poles. Since the conversations that Councilor Scott had with an Eversource rep, I believe it was 12% of the locations identified were removed, were resolved, which is quite an improvement in a short amount of time, which I'm very glad to hear. We also talked about a few items. One, the Wire Family Trust garage, which was approved with conditions that they ensure the cleanliness of the site. We also approved a flammables license for 74 Middlesex Ave, a new lab building that is going up. And yeah, with that, I'd like to ask that this report be accepted as submitted. And then if the president would oblige, I'd also like to waive some readings.
Excellent. This committee report is laid on the table for approval. Which items would you like to waive the reading of, Councilor Burnley?
Yes, thank you. I would like to waive the readings of items 9.1 through 9.5, and then as well as 10.17 through 10.19, and ask that they be approved.
Excellent. Those items are laid on the table for approval.
The next item then is item 6F, a report of the Committee on Open Space, Environment, and Energy, meeting on December 9th, 2024.
Councilor Mba.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met on December 9. 4 members were in attendance. The committee focused on the summertime and after-school programs of the Parks and Recreation Department. Director Yukos from the Parks and Recreation Department provided us with data on the variety of programs and numbers of kids who have participated during the past 2 years. They explained that the effort that the department had been making during the Summer Promise and Summer Viva to get information about programs and to all families enrolled with the kids were actually in motion. So not all parents have been able to navigate the website to sign up their kids on time. The agencies have been improving the website to make the process easier, and the staff of Parks and Recreation is now able to help parents in person and the department offices and at any program site. This is something that we've been advocating for. We were pleased to learn that the department is planning to expand the popular programs of swimming and team sports next year by making schedule changes at the pools and recreation facilities. In particular, they will add more swimming classes in the mornings before the pools are open to the public. And they will allow all kids who attend the summer camps to take swimming classes. I think that's pretty huge. We asked Director Yukes about the problem of facilities capacity as a limitation on recreation programs. In particular, the lack of space for the teen programs last year resulted in large decline in participation. We urge the department to pursue the use of spaces at the high school. For all these issues of outreach and enrollment of kids, facilities capacity, staff capacity, Director Yukes gave us a clear picture of the ways that the department is planning and making improvements so that we can expect next year's spring, summer, and fall activities to expand and be easier to access. With that, I submit this report as, please accept it as submitted.
That item is laid on the table for approval.
Item 6H is a report of the Committee on Traffic and Parking, meeting on December 2nd, 2024.
Councillor Said.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Traffic and Parking Committee met on December 2nd with all 3 members present. All items were marked as complete. The first item, we discussed installing bicycle traffic lights and appropriate yield to pedestrian signage at the intersection of Somerville Ave and Park Street. Director Rawson shared that staff is reviewing existing equipment and signage, and once completed, mobility will determine if an update is needed for 2025. The director shared that there are no significant updates to the timeline regarding straightening the community path crossing of School Street, but the city continues to work with the MBTA. We discussed the no truck signage at the corner of Warren Ave and Bow Street. The director said that the signage exists at this location and there is significant legwork to do legal and enforceable truck bans. We received an update on the citywide and curb use report. Some recommendations were shared with us by Director Rimfret, but it was not in the form of an elaborate presentation that captured the whole report. Therefore, members of the committee have asked that the Mobility, Engineering, Traffic and Parking Department appear before the council in January to share with us a full presentation. I received some good news in terms of raised crosswalks. An important raised crosswalk was built a few weeks ago at the intersection of Cedar Street and the community path. Then we had a long conversation about crossing guards. We were told by Chief Donovan that it's been difficult hiring and retaining crossing guards. He added that there is high demand for crossing guards because there is a lot of construction around the city. The deputy chief added that he investigated the October 23rd lack of crossing guard coverage at the intersection. I did not write down the street, but on Powerhouse Boulevard. He said that due to 2 reasons, one last-minute personal problem and one last-minute sick day, the crossing guards assigned to this location were not present. Regarding installation of speed humps on Medford Street between Central and School Street, the director shared that they are continuing to review this location. Currently, there is no plan to build isolated speed humps on the street, and there is no specific timeline or update. The director will be working with the Ward 4 councilor to understand the issue at hand on Puritan Ave at the intersection with Temple Street. Another intersection that will be reviewed is the Gilman and Aldrich Streets one. regarding the always stop signs and safety measures at Cedar Street intersection with the community path. The mobility director is reviewing additional stop control options over the winter and will provide updates following final recommendations. We discussed another item in regards to asking the chief police to resume the practice of issuing tickets rather than warnings. Chief Donovan shared that the standard procedure with officers is to write a money fine to get voluntary compliance. Currently, there's a court decision stating that a chief cannot dictate officers to give money fines, and it is up to the discretion of the officer handing out the fines. Lastly, we discussed an important issue regarding providing permits to non-resident parents with shared custody of children enrolled in public schools. Director Renfre said that there is relaxed parking is allowed around schools when there's school events, but the schools, they have to communicate that information to the traffic and parking department. Some schools are doing that, but a lot of schools are not doing that, and she thinks that's what is causing it. In terms of the daycare in Davis Square, we have discussed some options. Director Renfre asked that the director of the daycare reaches out to her with all the tickets that were issued, because in that area, those tickets shouldn't have been issued in the first place. With that, I ask that this committee report be approved as submitted.
Thank you. That item, Councilor McLaughlin on this.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, congratulations to the good councilor for getting the raised sidewalk or raised intersection at Cedar Street. I remember she placed that order, and I ride that street all the time, and it was done in like a week or so. I've never seen something get done so fast. So congratulations on that. I was curious, you mentioned Gilman and Aldrich Street. What was the update on that?
They will be reviewing that and adding it to the priority list.
Thank you, because that's my neighborhood. I definitely would love to see it happen. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say that the raised crosswalk, I've been talking about it, I think, since my term started. And eventually I had to put it in order, so it didn't just magically happen in a few weeks. So I'm very grateful for that.
Meanwhile, over in the eastern part of the city, raised crosswalks on the community path are apparently an engineering impossibility because they're on bridge seams. That item is laid on the table for approval.
Mr. President, can I move to waive the readings of, you ready for this?
We skipped a committee report by accident.
I did not forget the alphabet, but I did overlook item 6G, a report of the Committee on Public Utilities and Public Works, meeting on December 9th, 2024.
Councilor Klingon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, we met on the 9th at 6 p.m. All members are present. There was only like 5 items left in the box. This was just a end of the year cleanup. We had I'll just highlight a couple of things. We did discuss Councilor Scott's extended water shutoffs, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just want to say 17 shutdowns in this past fiscal year. That seems like a lot for one area, but there was only, through you, Mr. President, there was only one extended shutoff that lasted 12 hours. It was supposed to last 8 hours, but then there was unexpected situation unfolded, and they had to extend it for more. I did ask if they provided water. They said no. And I think that's something that we need to be cognizant of and definitely make sure we emphasize providing water to folks if they're going to be without water that long. The other thing I want to highlight is where to go? Sorry. I had it all set, and then you skipped me, and then the Veterans Memorial, sorry. So, yeah, we got a memo on that, which was disappointing, but I'll just read some of it. I mentioned there was concern about the condition, because that's really what the folks have been hearing is sort of rumors or whatnot about, where the memorials have been placed, and, I think people picture them to be in these crates that are essentially leaking water in and creating a lot of damage on the memorial. So Councilor Strezzo emphasized the importance of keeping the community updated about this project and asked the administration about the status of her request to place signage. Liaison Hutter said she's taken that back to staff to consider. Council McLaughlin stated that the current plan is complicated and suggested the city does not wait to resolve other outstanding matters, such as the plan for the 1895 building or the city's capital investments before acting. He stated that the Vietnam veterans are concerned they will not be alive to see the memorial put back. He suggested prioritizing the return of the Vietnam Wall and hosting a ceremony. And I expressed support and asked Liaison Hutter to please bring that back to staff. And I asked that this report be admitted as,
On the committee report, Councilor Strezzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Councilor Klingon, you don't want to talk about the trains?
All right, through you, Ms.
The
President, we had,
lines?
we had an extensive conversation about potential chemical spills from freight trains. There are actually 3 active lines, possibly 4, but he said that 3 were confirmed of freight trains that come through the city. We had the director of emergency management with us, and he basically described it how they have plans in place to deal with any type of emergency, be it a chemical spill or whatnot. He seemed to be up on all of the, like if it's in a certain distance, in terms of clearing people out. And I did ask, it is interesting that, so it is on the city, and then we get mutual aid from other cities and agencies that come in, but it is up to us to evacuate our people. It's not like the state sends people down right away. I don't know, is there anything you want to add, Councilor Strezzo? But that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Councilor Klingon, for remembering about that. But let's talk about that for a second, of the importance of why we need to be considering a potential chemical spill. Number one, Somerville's already had a chemical spill in 1980. Thank you. It's already happened here, and this is something that we have to make sure that we are prepared for. Heaven forbid anything like that ever happens, because I hope this is a completely hypothetical conversation. But this is something that we need to be updated on, and our first response was a memo, and I was grateful that the director stopped by the meeting to really explain the process and what it could look like. Heaven forbid a chemical spill did occur in one of our 3 confirmed, but 4 train lines that run through the most densely populated city in New England, and definitely the top 10 in the nation. We need to be thinking about that, because there is a deregulation effort by train companies, train lines that are happening, and it's by the year and in the next 4 years, and we need to be considering what that looks like of a climate of a future train deregulation in our country and in our community. This is a very real concern. So, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Scott.
Mr. President, thank you. I just wanted to extend my thanks to the chair for engaging that discussion with much lower blood pressure than I would have had. Yes, 18 water shutoffs means that at least once a month, if not twice, I get a lot of spirited phone calls from my neighbors who have very strong feelings about it. So thank you for that. I just had a question regarding the memo to the responding to the Veterans Monument situation. I appreciated seeing it, but honestly, I missed the memo the first time because it's attached to the meeting instead of to the item that it was in response to. So I guess I just ask, can we get that memo attached to the item? Is that a possibility?
If the administration submits it as an item, it will exist as its own item. It cannot be attached to an item that was previously submitted.
But it only exists, it doesn't exist as its own item.
It needs to exist as a communication in response to.
Okay, so we need to, in the future, request not a written response from the administration, but a written response submitted to the council as a formal measure to ensure that these responses can be found? Because, Mr. President, I just asked because if somebody next year clicks on this item to try to see what was discussed or what the administration's response is, they can see minutes about it, but they can't actually see the response unless they know to go to that specific meeting on that specific date when it was brought, in the case of something that's been in multiple meetings. So I'm trying to figure out how we can do this.
I agree. That does not sound optimal. Let's discuss this outside of the context of the meeting.
All right.
I appreciate you raising that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Wilson. That item is laid on the table for approval.
I think the moment passed. No, you ready? Here's a list. I'd like to move to waive the readings of items 7.2 to 7.4, 7.6 to 7.8, and then 7.10, 7.11, 7.13, 7.14, 10.5, and 10.6, and ask those be sent to Finance. Thanks.
Those items are referred to the Committee on Finance.
The next item then is item 7.15, a request of the mayor.
Councilor Pineda-Newfeld.
Mr. President, can we send this to confirmation of appointments, please?
Yes, that item is referred to confirmation of appointments.
And Mr. President, I believe we're going to refer 7.16, 7.17, and 7.19 also to confirmation of appointments.
Yes, I've asked that those be referred to the confirmation of appointments committee as well. Thank you.
I'll take 10.7 to 10.9 with him.
Ooh, yes, Madam Clerk, 10.7 to 10.9, also to confirmations. Yes, that's it.
So the next item is item 7.18, a request of the mayor requesting confirmation of the appointment of Alex Barbat to the Commission for Women.
I'd like to move to approve tonight, Mr. President.
Seeing no discussion, that item is laid on the table for approval.
Item 7.20 is a request of the mayor requesting confirmation of the appointment of Caitlin Firth to the Commission for Women.
I'd like to move to approve tonight, Mr. President.
That item is laid on the table for approval.
Item 7.21 is a request of the mayor requesting confirmation of the reappointment of Mary Battinelli as constable.
I'd like to move to approve tonight, Mr. President.
That item is laid on the table for approval.
Item 7.22 is a communication from the mayor conveying changes to the reappointment policy for boards, commissions, and committees.
This one's worth reading. Place on file.
Mr. President, may I just uplift, encouraging colleagues to read this memo. I had asked our legislative liaison to also be here to answer questions, but I wanted to make sure you all read through the new reappointment process in particular in case you all start to get questions from your constituents about why they're getting letters and what the new process is. I wanted to make sure you're all informed on what the process is on, that the mayor's team is proposing and what the timeline is. So please do read the memo, and Legislative Liaison Hutter is also available to answer questions.
Thank you. Can I ask if I refer a copy of that to confirmation of appointments, does it evaporate at the end of the year?
Yeah, but
okay.
It'll be on the list to resubmit. So if you
Let's refer this to confirmation of appointments, so it's on the list to resubmit. Was there?
Item 8.1 is an officer's communication from the Planning Board conveying recommendations for items 24-1197 and 24-1367.
That item is placed on file. I think these are already approved, right? Yeah.
Item 8.2 is an officer's communication from the city clerk conveying an update on the block party license process.
Do you want to verbally describe this?
I will happily if anyone is interested, but through you, Mr. President, I think the memo is self-explanatory. Happy to answer any questions offline. We've created a process. We're working with comms to get the word out, and that's where we're at.
Thank you, and thank you to my colleagues who kind of kick-started the effort to make it easier to apply for a block party. It turns out the answer was get the city council out of the way, so we have now done that. That item is placed on file.
Item 9.6 is a public communication from Jonathan Silverstein and Peter Mullane submitting comments regarding item 24-1315, an order regarding lot splits and mergers.
That item is placed on file with a copy of the land use.
Item 10.1 is a resolution by Councilor Strezzo that the administration discuss how it plans to keep city employees and residents safe from sexual harassment and previous ways it has done so in recent years.
Councilor Strezzo, just very briefly, and I'm doing this for the benefit of the public. I want to make sure that everyone in the public understands whenever we're discussing personnel issues, under Massachusetts general law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A1. Discussions of the character of an individual must occur in executive session, and the City Council is required to provide written notice to the individual 48 hours in advance. Additionally, under that section, an individual has the right to be present, to have counsel or a representative of their choosing to advise them, to speak on their own behalf. They can also choose to waive that and have it be discussed in open session. And I just say that so that everyone understands in the public, there is a reason that individuals are not discussed in open session, because there is state law protecting employees and giving them rights to be present and to have that discussion happen in private. With that said, I know my colleagues are aware of this. I just wanted everyone else to be as well. Councilor Strezzo.
That's right. And so I put this forward in a resolution in for the simple option for the administration to have a chance to respond for transparency. So if anyone from the mayor's office wishes to speak, Mr. President, through you, that's
Does
why I created
Intergovernmental Affairs wish to respond to this?
If they do, they don't. Either way.
Director Singh, welcome.
To the President, thank you for that. I can check to see if Chief of Staff Nikki Spencer is available to make a comment on that if you give me a minute.
Certainly, yes. Why don't we, here's Director, Chief of Staff Spencer.
Good evening. Through you, Mr. President, my name is Nikki Spencer, Chief of Staff to Mayor Ballantyne, she, her, hers. I want to start out by noting that this item is about a truly painful subject. I know saying that the city takes these cases seriously can sound hollow, but I want to be clear that we know if an employee is bringing up sexual harassment in the workplace or any act that violates our equal opportunity or EO policy, it is always a very painful experience for that individual. So when we say we take this seriously, that is genuine. With more notice, we are happy to have our experts on staff come to a future meeting to answer questions about our EO policy, or in broad strokes, discuss how we handle any concerns around sexual harassment. I'm afraid I cannot speak to specific cases of how we've enforced this policy in the past. Those details are confidential. However, I can share insight into the standards we adhere to every day. Broadly, this work takes place in two main ways. First, we train our staff in order to prevent harassment in the first place. Second, we have strong policies for investigating and addressing any complaints received and any instances found to have occurred. Our EO policy is available on the city's website, and it applies to all city employees. The EO policy is part of every new employee's orientation process. Under this administration, we committed to regularly training our employees on anything to do with harassment, intimidation, and retaliation. We've had citywide training on sexual harassment within the past year. We have launched management training on a variety of topics, and we also provide employee assistance plan services for individualized coaching and counseling of employees. Finally, we are in the process of awarding a contract for a gender identity training that we are planning to implement in early 2025. And I'll just say that the work to prevent harassment and to create a safe work environment is constant and every day. Again, we cannot speak to the details of any individual circumstances. Trust me when I say this administration, which is dedicated to transparent and inclusive leadership, would love to be able to give you specific examples of how we've handled these claims professionally, appropriately, and according to the law and the EO policy. But a key aspect of that policy is respecting the confidentiality of all parties. Victims, complainants, witnesses, and the accused at all times, even when it's not convenient. So this administration would be happy to bring our expert staff to the table at a future date, given the notice. However, we did not want to let this important topic go unanswered tonight. So I thank you truly for valuing the safety of our city workers and for your understanding of the limits of what we can do or say publicly. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief of Staff Spencer. Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I wanted to thank my colleague for this, but also wanted to remind colleagues in the general public that that was the work that happened throughout 2018 and 2019 when I believe Councilor Strezzo was serving on the Commission for Women, and through our Confirmation of Appointments and Personnel Matters Committee, we were ultimately able to obtain a record of harassment cases and their discipline and outcomes. I can't send you a direct link to that file because it's in our old system, but the video of that meeting is available. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Strezzo.
Thank you, and that's right. Blast from the past. I got you, Councilor Scott. I want to thank the administration for responding to that, and I'm happy for this to be placed on file.
Thank you. This item is placed on file. Oh, sorry. There's a hand raised. Councilor Burnley. Apologies.
Thank you. Through the chair. Not only is there a hand raised, there's another item on the same topic that I think it behooves us to take them up together, 10.3. So if we could read that into the record, then I could
let's read that
potentially. Yeah.
Item 10.3 is a resolution by Councilor Burnley calling for integrity and accountability in the workplace. Councilor
Burnley.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate this discussion, and I also appreciate the caveat that the president gave at the beginning of it. And I just want to express the frustration that I've heard from current staff in our community, from former staff, from the Cambridge Library Associates, from the Massachusetts Library Associates. There is real disappointment and anger about how the public feels that we've fallen short of our responsibility here. And I think that as much as we can talk about the progress we've made, the seriousness in which we take this, I think we have to acknowledge that the public does not feel that duty was done here. And I just wanted to have a moment to uplift the voices of the folks who cannot speak for themselves in this moment. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. This item is approved.
Item 10.4 is a communication by Councilor Said conveying information regarding the rental registry.
Councilor Said.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to try to be brief. It's going to be hard to be brief, but I'll try. This year, the city partnered with the Consensus Building Institute to conduct the stakeholder engagement consisting of a set of initial interviews followed by focus groups and a public meeting. A final report includes findings from 20 interviews, 10 focus groups, and a public meeting conducted virtually by the city. The final report can be found at somervillema.gov/RRED. I highly encourage my colleagues to check it out before the ordinance is before us. This report contains findings from tenants, tenant representatives, and low-income advocates, climate advocates, and policy researchers, small and medium-scale landlords, older small-scale landlords, large commercial landlords and business interest sector, professional service providers, university public housing, and nonprofit affordable housing providers, utility representatives, Somerville and Massachusetts staff. The report list some issue-specific perspectives that we have been discussing during the meetings we had this fall. For each issue, the section highlights key policy choices that City Council should consider based on stakeholder feedback. I will list some of those issue-specific perspectives and the policy that the choice that City Council should consider. I will not list everything for each policy, but just the important ones. So one, registration, information, and energy disclosure requirements. These questions give rise to various policy choices, in particular whether and how the city is willing to pay utilities to establish a system for data collection, whether the city is willing to put a requirement on landlords to ask for information or on tenants to disclose information. Two, exemptions. To support decision-making on this issue, it could be helpful to learn more about opportunities to minimize administrative burdens on small-scale landlords in buildings with owner-occupied units, as well as university, public housing, and nonprofit affordable housing providers through effective program design. Three, registration system and timing. The key policy consideration on this issue is around program staffing and resourcing, as well as the importance of careful design. Stakeholders highlighted the complexity of the building sector and the potential difficulties obtaining broad compliance, especially among more vulnerable landlord populations, and encouraged the city to ensure the program is sufficiently resourced to ensure an effective design and sufficient support for compliance. The next one is accessibility and awareness raising. We also have pass-through and operating costs. Institutional responsibilities. For this one, the policy choice around institutional responsibilities for administering and enforcing the ordinance and challenges around institutional enforcement capacity, in particular with ISD. We had a very long conversation at our last meeting. If this passes, we will need to expand staffing in ISD in order to conduct the enforcement part of this ordinance. So yeah, enforcement, we are currently discussing how the enforcement and fees will happen. A lot of these discussions, no decisions have been made, and these are just internal discussions that I will not be sharing publicly until the new year. And the last one is the rollout and awareness raising this policy consideration in this area, and it involves balancing the urgency of moving forward to achieve climate safety, health and housing goals as soon as possible versus the benefits of taking the time needed to ensure successful program design and launch. A draft of the ordinance is available on the same website I mentioned. As I said, the details about the ordinance are still being discussed internally. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your service on this task force working group. Can I ask, and sorry if I missed it, is there a date that we should expect this to be submitted to the City Council?
I think it will be early, like January. I thought it was going to be this month, but then it's not finalized. So my understanding is going to be early next year. So I think we'll have one more meeting.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, this is, there have been years of working towards this, so I'm glad that we are finally getting to the point that there is going to be language informed by community process before the council, and thank you to yourself and to everyone who's worked on this. That item is placed on file.
Item 1010 is a request of the mayor requesting confirmation of the appointment of Sarah Pascarella to the Library Board of Trustees.
We didn't do this. I move to approve. This is laid on the table for approval.
Great. Item 1020 is a public communication from Adrian Brayton and Jess White submitting comments regarding item 24-1580, the draft Armory Master Plan.
That item is placed on file, and unless anyone objects, I'd like to waive the readings of 21, 22, and 23 and place all of those public comments on file.
And that brings us to the end of the agenda, Mr. President.
Are there late items?
That is everyone's favorite question, isn't it? I do not see any further items before the council.
Everyone's favorite answer. Let's take a big old vote.
There are a bunch of things we will take off the table. So on approval of items 1.3, 2.1 to 2.3, 3.1 to 3.4, 4.1 to 4.10. Nope, I think I got it wrong. Oh, you gotta give me a minute. Let's see. Okay, 4.1 to 4.10, 5.1, 6B, 6E through 6H, 7.5, 7.9, 7.12, 7.18, 7.20 to 7.21, 9.1 to 9.5, 10.3, 10.10, 10.17 to 10.19, and to place on file 4.11, 7.22, 8.1 to 8.3, 9.6, 10.1, 10.4, and 10.20 to 10.23. On those items, Councilor McLaughlin.
I'd like to sever an item. Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Councilor Said.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Burnley.
Aye.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Pineda-Newfeld.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
With all councilors in favor, those items are approved and placed on file as indicated.
And on adjournment.
On adjournment, Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Wilson.
No. Not yes.
Councilor Said.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes, please.
Councilor Burnley.
Nay.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Pineda-Newfeld.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
With 10 councilors in favor and 1 opposed, we are adjourned.